Morning again to you, to all the participants. And please kindly note that this session is being recorded. And welcome to the Research Capacity Development Unit at the University of Johannesburg Postgraduate School. And I would like to start off by thanking all the attendees for taking the time to join us. And most importantly, I would like to thank our presenters, our facilitators, Dr. Gabriel Moniera and Ms. Koketso Pila, for taking your time to prepare for this very insightful presentation on manuscript structure and formatting for the social sciences. Uh, excuse me, before I begin the session, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules, of which I'd like to think most of the participants are aware of. If you do have any question during the session, please kindly raise your hand. And if you do not wish to speak, please kindly type your questions in the chat box, and I will then indicate to the presenter to address your question. This session is being recorded, and the presentation slides together with the workshop recording will be posted on our model communities. And for those that are not registered on our model communities, please kindly email us at rcdinquiries@uj.ac.za. I will pop the email into the chat box, and probably at the end of the session, I will just show all the participants how to navigate our model system if you are struggling to do that. And I will also be sharing a feedback survey in the chat session. Please kindly fill it in, as we use this for our reporting purposes, as well as to provide some kind words to our facilitators for their hard work and preparing to even this presentation. Before we can begin, please kindly allow me to read over our facilitators' bios at your hearing. I will begin with Dr. Gabriel Moniera. Dr. Gabriel Moniera holds a PhD in Economic and Management Sciences with International Trade from the Northwest University and is currently enrolled in the postgraduate diploma in research supervision at the University of Johannesburg. With over a decade of teaching experience and a strong publication record, he has authored and co-authored book chapters and a number of articles in top-tier accredited peer-reviewed journals. He actively reviews for reputable journals and has received multiple awards for academic excellence. Dr. Monera completed his postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Johannesburg and currently serves as a research capacity development specialist at the UJ Postgraduate School, supporting postgraduate students and researchers in academic writing and publication. His research interests include trade policy, export promotion, globalization, foreign trade investment, regional integration in Africa, market accessibility measurement, and 4IR trade-related research. You can even hear from your hearing that that is such a rich bio from Dr. Gabriel. And allow me again to read our facilitator, Ms. Koketso Pila, is a candidate in the Department of Science and Technology, and she holds a Bachelor of Education in Senior and FET phases, an honors in STEM education, and a master's in science education obtained with a distinction. Ms. Pila is currently a PhD candidate at the Department of Science and Technology Education, and Ms. Koketso has worked at the Faculty of Education as a tutor, a student assistant, a research assistant, and an assistant lecturer. She has published several papers, including a book chapter, and Ms. Koketso's research areas lies in language, AI, and advanced technologies in science, teaching, and learning. And who else would it be to facilitate such an insightful workshop? You can even hear that our facilitators have published in several journals and have book chapters, and they will be taking over now to facilitate this section on manuscript structure and formatting for the social sciences. So without any further ado, please kindly allow me to hand over to our facilitators, Dr. Gabriel and Ms. Koketso Pila. You may now take over. Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Please allow me to just share my presentation.
Okay, I have stopped side. You can share your screen.
Let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, I can see your presentation. All the participants, can you please kindly show with a thumbs up if you can see the facilitator's presentation slides? Yes, I think they can all see your presentation. You may now proceed.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone that has joined us today in this presentation, which is titled Manuscript Structure and Formatting for the Social Sciences. My name is Koketso Bila, as I've already been introduced, and I will be co-presenting this workshop with Dr. Gabriel Moniera. Just to present the outline of the presentation. So this is how our presentation is actually structured. We will start with the introductions, and we will also discuss, or we'll have an overview of a manuscript, specifically in the social sciences, and we will discuss some formatting tips, the common errors which we should avoid when we are writing our manuscripts, and also the submission preparation checklist, the resources and tools. And we will then conclude our session and provide some of the references that we have used when compiling this presentation. And at the end of the presentation, we will have an open discussion where we will have the opportunity to, all the participants will have the opportunity to share their experiences or ask any questions um, that they need clarity on, and just to have a discussion and see how we can address all those questions that you have. So today, as I've mentioned, we will be discussing the manuscripts in the social sciences. So it is just for formalities. I know we had a workshop yesterday that was about the reviewers' comments. When you submit your manuscripts for journal to different journals, and we already have an idea of what a manuscript is. But just for formalities, we will start by defining, giving a broader, definition of what a manuscript is, which is, a complete a written version of your work, such as a research paper or article or book, which may form part of a book chapter that may form part of a book, a thesis as well. So before it has been formally published. So this is your piece of work that you have written and compiled before the formal publication. It can be referred to as a pre-publication form. So it is the final draft of your work before it is published by the different journals or conferences. So it is an unpublished work. So that is a broader definition of the manuscript, or our understanding of what a manuscript is. And it can be in different formats. It can be in a Word format, and it can be in a PDF format. And because you're submitting this to different journals or conferences for presentation as well, it is important that it is properly structured and well formatted. It must be in a good formatting for you to submit it and for it to be accepted, because the manuscript that you have, it's not a guarantee that it's going to be accepted. So sometimes it can be rejected because you are submitting to different journals. It can be rejected based on different reasons, certain things that we also discussed in yesterday's workshop. So it is important that it is very well structured. And a well-structured and properly formatted manuscript enhances clarity. It helps the readers and the reviewers and the editors to understand and follow through your work very easily. So causing most of the time, the general reviewers, they have limited time to do this work. They have limited time to go through your work and provide comments. So it helps them to, have a well-structured manuscript so that it makes the evaluation process more smoother and even more faster. And it is also important to note that different journals have their own formatting and submission requirements. So if you are targeting a certain journal, you can go to their website and then see how their manuscripts should be structured. Yes, we are providing you with a broader, format and a broader structure that is common in all the journals, but it is important that you go specifically to the journal that you're targeting for you to learn more about their specific structure and their format. And in most of this, they do provide templates that needs to be followed. They provide submission guidelines, structure guidelines, and they provide a template for you to follow and submit in that particular journal. So if you're targeting that, being well knowledgeable about their formatting requirements. So good formatting reflects professionalism as well. So it shows that you are actually you respect your work and you are taking this publication process very seriously as an academic. So that it speaks. I always say that your work has your name written on it. It has your name on it. So when you put a well structured and well formatted manuscript out there, it says something about you and the value that you have for your work. So you can't afford to submit something that has many errors or that is not well formatted, that is not well structured. The tables are in an inappropriate way, or there's just a bit of a mess, and it makes it difficult for the editors to follow through your work. It can be very frustrating. I can imagine that when you have a lot of manuscripts that you need to assess, and you have this one that is very difficult to follow, it can be frustrating to the reviewers. So the clearer it is and the straightforward it is, then the better, for yourself as well. And for the reviewers, I mean, that means maybe they can return it back with minor reviews or minor changes that needs to be implemented, instead of having, more work with major revisions that you need to do. So it makes your life even much more easier if you put the work the first time before you submit it. Structured manuscripts also support, ethical transparency and the reproducibility of your work and integrity in research communication. We can follow through, okay, this person did this and this and that for them to get to this conclusion. So it is well structured and from one point to another, So that is something that you should, want to do, have a well structured manuscript. So looking at the overview of, a typical social sciences manuscript, it should be able to contain, the title page, which has your title there and some of your information, information of the author and the co-authors, and it should have an abstract, which is basically a summary of your your whole manuscript. It's summarized in the abstract. And you, as a person receives, or maybe they search for an article, the first thing that you do, you read the abstract for you to get to understand. If I want to read further, if this article is something that I want to read, the abstract, and it gives you all the information about that particular paper. And you also have your keywords that makes your work discoverable, and you are able to, when someone punches or they search for certain keywords that they look for, then your publication is able to come up because it has, like, elements of that particular those keywords. And you'll have your introduction, you'll have your literature review, and the theoretical framework as well, which is within your literature review. And you'll have the methodology, which details the process that you've undergone to actually get the results and conclusions for your particular, paper or your study. The discussion as well, and the results. Well, the results first, the findings, and the discussions, and the conclusion. It summarizes your work, and importantly, your references and the appendices as well that are attached at the end of your manuscript. So just to go into details with all these aspects, as well. It is important to craft a very clear, descriptive, and engaging title, that captures the readers, and it reflects your work as well. So as it captures the attention of the readers, it reflects the work that is in that paper, in that manuscript, so that it also attracts the right audience. So the moment I read the title, I can say, oh, this is actually something that I want, so it attracts. So when you are busy, conceptualizing the title of your paper, just make sure that it is well structured. It captures the attention, and it also reflects what is in your paper. And here you also need a list of all the authors with their affiliations, and this must be correct information as well. You can also include the OSIC IDs if they are there, for transparency, and author identification as well, and then provide the contact information for all the corresponding author to facilitate communication during the peer review and after publication, because here your details are there, and when they need to send back, after you send the manuscript and they are assessing it and then they send back the feedback, the details are there as well. And even after publication, you know um even after publication, the details are there. And if someone, when your work has been published, and someone wants further information about your publication, they can contact you. For example, with myself also, I had I was interested in this paper that I got online, and I was particularly interested in the questionnaire, the test that they use to collect their data. But when I read through the article, they speak, they give parts of that test, but they didn't give like the whole document. So because that article had details of the authors, in the first page, or in the title page, then I was able to take that information and send them an email to request the full document for that test that they used. And they replied and sent me the test, the full document of the test. So it's able to allow other people to communicate with you, if they need anything on that publication. And if you're comfortable, you can send them. If you developed a certain questionnaire or an observation tool, stuff like that, people can actually contact you. And they know that they can even they sometimes they don't contact you to request certain documents, but just to contact you, maybe requesting for collaboration with you, get international people that wants to collaborate with you, or even local people. So it's very important to give the details, where people can communicate with you as well. So also acknowledge the funding resources that you have received, and conflict of interest. Some of the journals need you to declare the conflict of interest, to maintain your research integrity as well. So also note that some of the journals require a running head of page headers. So always check the submission guidelines for that as well, and also include the manuscript category, or the keywords on the title page. We've mentioned about, yes, some of the journals actually need you to include the keywords on the title page. So it all depends on the guidelines, like we said, that you need to be knowledgeable about um the guidelines for that particular journal that you're targeting. So that is the title page. And moving on to the abstract. So the abstract, like I mentioned earlier on, it will, determine if I want to read your paper further, right? Um, it is the most read part of your paper, and often, what determines whether someone wants to read the full paper. So the key elements to include in your abstract is the background, the objectives, methods, the main findings, and the implications. So basically, it summarizes your whole paper. It summarizes your whole manuscript. In most of the journals, they will give a word limit on the abstract. Some will say 150 to 250 words. Your abstract must be limited to 150 to 250 words. So you must summarize your whole paper in 150 words. And I must be able to say when I read it, okay, this is something that I'm interested in. It gives me details that, okay, this is what I'm expecting to find in this particular paper or in this manuscript, so the abstract also, you should avoid like some jargon words. It must be straightforward so that even the non-specialist audience can read it and they can understand it. The broader academic audience can be able to follow through your work. So you this is where you don't try to impress with your vocabulary, but you try to communicate your research. you know some journals also requires like structured abstract with subheadings, which are common in some of the journals for clarity as well. So they'll give you like a guideline where it has subheadings on your abstract, and then you follow those subheadings. For example, they'll say maybe objectives, then you give your objectives. Methodology, then you give the methodology. So it depends on the abstract that you're targeting as well. So it's not it's a rule that is in all the journals. So that is and it is advisable also to write the abstract um after finalizing your manuscript, because then you have an idea of what you have done with this manuscript, and you summarize it in 150 to 250 words. So you already know this, so it's just you putting together that 150 to 250 words to summarize what you have done in your whole paper. So that is the abstract. And moving on to the keywords. The keywords, they actually help the databases and the research engines to classify your work, improving its visibility. When the moment people, as I've mentioned this, the moment people punch in certain things that you're looking for, then your article is able to pop up because it has those keywords that people are looking for. So choose keywords that are neither too broad nor too narrow to reach your target audience effectively. So this is it makes it easy for people to discover your work, and for your study to be clear on which audience they're targeting. The moment I click pre-service teachers because those are my audience. The moment I click pre-service teachers, because your work or your manuscript, or that's maybe at that time it is published. The moment I click on or I search pre-service teachers, your article pops up because it spoke about pre-service or in-service teachers, or any type of keywords based on your study. So you can also check the journal's preferred keyword list or the control for vocabulary to increase the chances of indexing. So also use terms that reflect the major concepts or the methodology or the population studied. Like I said, maybe you are targeting certain people that will be included in your keywords. And also remember to separate your keywords with commas, but also this depends on how the journal that you're targeting, they want it. So that is those are the keywords, and most of the journals, they may require 4 to 6 keywords for your study. And now moving on to the introduction. The introduction is also one aspect that is very important, because then it after the abstract, you read the introduction, and it will also determine if I'm really interested in this article or in this manuscript. It must begin with like a captivating statement, an opening statement, that grabs the attention. It grabs the attention of the audience for them to want to read more. And in the introduction, you also articulate the research problems very clearly. You emphasize the gaps, or the societal relevance of the phenomena that is under study. And define the key terms and concept earlier on to avoid confusion as well. And you most of the people tend to just provide acronyms without providing, or abbreviations without providing like the full word first, which is confusing. So the most common words that you're going to be using throughout your manuscript or throughout your paper, introduce them earlier on so that we know, okay, we get to familiarize ourselves with these concepts before, and then we know that moving on, this means that, and avoid just putting abbreviations without, we know that when you put an abbreviation or an acronym, you state it in full first before you can um, put the abbreviation, further on in your manuscript. Makes it easier for the readers to follow through your work. And as I've mentioned, articulate your research problems very clearly so that we understand what is the problem that you're addressing in this manuscript. Um, it is also highly important to state the research objectives, the research questions, the hypothesis, and very clearly, explicitly and clearly, and also outline the manuscript structure to help the reader to navigate your paper. And remember that the introduction sets expectations and motivates the readers to continue to read your work. We'll browse through and check, the research questions that you're addressing. Okay, this is something that I'm interested in. So it's not likely that someone will just read the whole article first, because you need to know, okay, is this relevant to me? You go to the important parts, the abstract, the introduction, where you articulate your research questions. Okay, what are the research questions that this person is addressing? Those are the parts that I'm going to target before I can read the whole article, So it must be captivating and have like a very capturing opening statement. And moving on to the literature review, literature review is not just a summary, but it's a critical synthesis of existing knowledge that is relevant to your study. It shows that you are well knowledgeable about, that phenomena and the study. What has other people done before? So that you also avoid repetition of knowledge. If someone has done this before, then why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? So it makes you as the researcher to be able to identify the gaps. Okay, this has been studied, but this aspect that I'm doing hasn't been studied. So, and we provide reasons for that. So it shows that you are well read of on the topic that is under study. You are well knowledgeable about your area of focus, and you are able to compare this knowledge in different internationally and locally as well. So because when you review literature, you also include local knowledge, you include international knowledge, so that we know that when you identify the gap, you read and you are well knowledgeable. It's not just a summary, it is a detailed, a critical analysis of the existing literature and existing knowledge that has been put out by other authors. So organize your literature also thematically, chronologically, and methodologically to tell a coherent story. So your literature tells a story. That's why it has to be coherent. From this point, it shows that, okay, from this subheading, you're moving on to the subheading, and then they are connected. You can see moving from one point to another instead of just having different subtopics there that are not even linked to one another. So it's important to, have coherence. From this point, I'm concluding here, and then I'm starting another point which is linked to the one above, and then I'm moving on to something else like that. So you will also tell when you read that, okay, this thing is actually moving coherently. I'm following through. I understand from this point. I'm moving on to this point. I'm moving on to this point, and you can also tell literature that is just all over the place and it's not well organized. You can tell when you're reading, but okay, how did we move from this point to this point? So as a reader, you'll be able to tell that this literature is it's not coherent and is not well structured. But in a well structured one, you will also see it and you will notice that, okay, now I am following, I understand this, and establishing also a theoretical framework. It helps to ground your study in established concepts or theories, providing analytical analytical lenses to say, okay, my study is actually situated under this theory. And it's important to, give literature on that theory so that you can make connection between your topic and that theory. How do they align together? How is your topic situated within this topic? And, my topic is being viewed from the lens of this theory or this framework, this concept, so theoretical framework, especially in the social sciences, theoretical frameworks are very important. And, some people, even in your thesis, some people, it's not all, um, it's not all. It depends on you and how you discuss with your supervisor. There are people who actually have a theoretical framework on its own, a chapter. This now I'm talking about the your thesis or dissertation. They have a chapter that is specifically designed or specifically for the theoretical framework, but it's not um, a general rule that people apply. Some situated in the literature review, some have a chapter on its own for theoretical framework. So it depends on the broadness of your study and the theoretical framework and your communication with your supervisor on how you structure this. So also it is important to identify the gaps, inconsistencies, or debates that justifies your research. And in this literature review, you're not only reviewing literature that agrees with what you're doing, even those that are contrasting. You give that viewpoint to say, okay, this study is contrasting this concept because of this, because it's an argument. At the end of the day, it's an argument, and you're trying to convince maybe your point of view or your that phenomenon that you're studying, but you still need to consider those are opposing it. That's why we say it is a critical analysis. A critical analysis doesn't mean you look at one aspect, the positive aspect. You also need to look at the negatives. It might not be the negatives, but just the contrasting. But yes, you get the point. And requires one to critically engage with sources rather than just passive reporting. And reading literature doesn't not always. It's not always about um, what it is about understanding what other people have put out there, but it teaches you as you're reading literature, you're reading what other people have written. It also teaches you how people, put their points across, how they write academic writing. You learn it from reading what other people have done or how other people have expressed ideas of how other people have structured their their papers. So you learn a lot of things by just critically reviewing literature, and the literature must also link to directly to research questions or the hypothesis. Don't lose yourself, or don't lose your idea as you are reviewing literature. So even when you are doing your literature review, have your research questions or your objectives close by to keep on referring to them so that you don't deviate away from what you're trying to do. Because it's easier to just take a different route. It's easier to just deviate from the initial idea because all this literature is coming through. So always have your objectives on the side. Keep on referring to them to say, okay, I mustn't forget that this is what I'm targeting. This is what I'm doing. So that you don't lose yourself and deviate from the initial idea of what you have. And the methodology now. So a detailed description of your research design and approach is very critical and it's very crucial for reproducibility and the validity assessment. So you choose the methodologies the research design that you want to implement in your study, and be it qualitative, quantitative, the mixed methods, and you justify why you chose that particular research design. So I think we are well aware now that everything in academic writing, in your manuscripts, in your this thesis or dissertation, anything that is academic writing related, it needs you to always provide reasons. You always need to provide reasons. When I'm choosing this, I'm providing reasons. When I'm putting this point across, I'm providing reasons and I'm providing evidence. So you also explain why you should provide reasons why this particular research design is suitable for your study. Describing your sample clearly and how the participants of your research were selected. There must be a criteria of why you chose that particular sample and why you chose those particular participants that are taking part in your study, and how they were selected and their characteristics, and the size of your population. It's very, very, those are the details, the finer details that should not be left out from your methodology section. The details about the data collection methods, they need to be clearly stated: how, when, where. The context is very important, because then if other people are searching for context that was done in South Africa, they can tell, okay, when I'm reading articles that were done in South Africa, or internationally, they can tell the context to say, okay, this is a paper that was done for this. It's relevant for what I want to do, or what I want to study. So the context is very important. And, data analysis techniques, the softwares that we used, if we use the SPSS, if we use the Atlas, and all the other softwares that were used, they need to be stated. Ethical considerations as well, the consent forms, the anonymity of your participants, the use of pseudonyms, if you did use pseudonyms, and the ethical or ethics approvals that you have obtained for you to collect that data that you have and to be in contact with the participants that you have chosen. So you also here, you need to balance, sufficient details with conciseness, because you don't want to overwhelm the reader. So as much as you're being detailed, you also need to, remain concise as well, so that you don't overwhelm the reader. But you still need to put like sufficient details. Don't you know not put the important details because of you want to be concise. In that conciseness, just that you don't just focus on one thing and speak about it for too long. You can, for something that can be kept short, something that can be kept short, and you stay on that point for the whole paragraph. No, you can just be detailed and concise at the same time. Just a good balance of both. And I think this is a skill that you learn as you write more. As you write many papers, this is you learn to be concise while you're being detailed, because also the feedback from the reviewers will also guide you if you were detailed enough, or if you were not detailed enough, if you were concise enough, or if you're not concise enough. So I think it's a skill that you learn as you produce more work. And now, coming to the findings. We have explained your methodology, how you collected your data, and now you present your findings. So the results section should present, the data clearly without, this is just the facts, without the interpretation. You just give the data that you have obtained, either through surveys, questionnaires, interviews. So this is where the results come in, and group the results logically as well, according to the research questions or the themes, because this research questions you might have, for you to address this research question, you might have obtained or collected data in this form, and for you to the second research question, you might have collected data in this way to address that question. So address, also group those logically, so that we can follow through. Okay, this data was addressing this aim or this research questions, and this data was addressing this and that. And you can also use tables, graphs, figures, to present the complex data, visually and understandably so. So you report for quantitative data, report on the statistical values, significance levels, the confidence intervals, and for the qualitative data, also present the themes with supporting codes or illustration for your findings. Remember that there must always be transparency by including the non-significant or the unexpected findings to avoid being biased. So if something, maybe if out of five five people, four are agreeing with, um that phenomena that you're studying, they are in agreement. So this is in the alignment with your topic and your objectives. And there's this one person that is totally against that. You don't hide the results from that person. You put them in because it's a true reflection. And because everything is you provide reasons for that. Four people agreed and their reasons were this, one person disagreed and the reasons were that. And also, I think receiving such data enriches your data because you have more points to discuss, so you don't hide things that, go against maybe your topic or your concept or the idea that you have. You give the results as they are. This is, you not being biased. So yes, take note of that. And it is important to ensure that all visuals are well labeled and they are referenced accordingly in the text. If you have figures, you label them accordingly. If you have tables, you label them accordingly. And illustrations also, pictures, you label them accordingly. And now the discussion, after you have your results. Now you interpreted you're interpreting your results and you're discussing. So this is the section where you interpret your findings and explain their significance in the context of the existing research. You connect your results back to your literature review and your theoretical framework and the aim of your study. You discuss also the implications for the theory, the practice, or policy relevance to the social sciences. This is the impact of your study is very important. What are the implications of your study? Why are you doing this? Which value is it adding to the policies, the theories? Maybe you're developing a new theory. Maybe you are adding on to an already existing theory. You're providing more or new knowledge rather. So yeah, the implication of your study. Um, Remember that you need to honestly and truthfully discuss um, your study's limitations and how they may affect the interpretation of your results. So all the limitations and delimitations, they need to be clearly stated, and also propose areas for future research to build on your findings. So from these recommendations that you propose, someone will read that and they can, it's an idea that they can take further. Okay, this person actually studied this, but maybe you recommend that more should be studied on this aspect because that was not the focus of your study, but this is something that you're recommending for the future. So include that as well. Someone might pursue the idea. You never know. So avoid repeating the results section verbatim as well. Focus on the sorry, synthesis and the analysis as well. So, and then now you're coming to the conclusion, which summarizes the key takeaways of your research without introducing new information. So here you're not introducing, your conclusion doesn't introduce new information, but it summarizes what you have already done, what you have already discussed. You're just providing the key takeaways of your, your manuscript, your research, and reaffirm the contribution of your study. This is where you highlight them again, to say, okay, this study is contributing to the society in this way as well. So also provide clear and focused concluding remarks and recommendations if they are appropriate. So the conclusion leaves a lasting impression for your work. So make sure that your conclusion, captures everything that you have done and does the recommendations very clearly. And from the conclusion, now you're moving on to the references. That citation is a bigger part of your research. I mean, you've been reading other people's work. You cannot pretend as if it's your work. So you have to cite the people accordingly, and all the journals, every journal has their own type of research referencing style that they want, and they provide guidance on this. So you just need to be well knowledgeable about what that journal wants. And remember, you have to be consistent. If you're using one style of referencing, the APA must be consistent throughout. Don't use different referencing style in one paper. That is not professional. Be consistent. Avoid issues of plagiarism. If you have used someone's work, cite it accordingly, and don't pretend as if it's your work. Um, you know, Avoid plagiarism as much as you can. And you can even use the reference management softwares. I think we have many referencing management softwares that can help you to organize your references clearly without mistakes. But you also need to check when you're using this softwares. You also need to check, at the end, just the final checks to see if everything is according. It's written accordingly, and you can also include the DOIs, digital object identifiers, or any URLs if they are actually applicable. If they are there. You know, Also, as I've mentioned, double check each citation for if they are correct in terms of spelling, if the punctuations are correct, and formatting, especially if you're using the softwares, check at the end. Don't just depend and say, oh, but the referencing software, I can trust it. Just check as the you know the writer, because that paper has your name on it. You can just afford to send it without a proper checking and editing of your work. And then at the end, you include the appendices. If these are the supporting information or supporting documents that were used in your study. This may include the surveys, the interview guides, the additional data tables, or the consent forms, even the consent forms. So if maybe, and you reference this accordingly, you references the appendices in the main referencing list, because if I have taken someone else's or I've used another author's questionnaire that they've developed, I need to reference that and not take it as if I developed that. So reference that accordingly and include this. If that particular journal requires you to attach them at the end, then you do that. Also, this will depend on what that particular journal that you're targeting requires. But you label them also accordingly. You organize and label your appendices clearly. For example, Appendix A, Appendix B, so that the reader can easily navigate your work and they know, okay, the Appendix A, when I scroll down to the Appendix A, it speaks to this particular thing, to this particular aspect. So it's easier when you label them. Don't just put them there for someone to figure out, okay, this is in connection. Maybe if you have referenced that appendix in the main body, then they can scroll down and they see, okay, the Appendix A is about this, and not, allow or just let someone to try and figure out what Appendix A is about. So clearly label them so that we can navigate easily. And lastly, the appendices should be concise and comprehensive as well. And yeah, so that is the general and the overview of a typical social sciences manuscript. It's not too different from, our thesis and dissertation. These are most of the aspects that are there that you would expect in a thesis or in a dissertation. So a manuscript is not too different from that. It's just a summary of the your thesis or your dissertation, which you keep short. Unlike the thesis, which is very long and everything, but it's not too different from your thesis or your dissertation. So I will then hand over to Dr. Gabriel to discuss the formatting tips and take us through, the formatting tips that you need to take off as you are busy compiling or editing your manuscript.
Thank you so much to you, Ms. Koketsopila, for giving us such an insightful manuscript structure. And we really, really appreciate your insight and expertise on such an important topic on structuring a manuscript. In that regard, I would like to hand over to you, Dr. Gabriel, to continue with the other part of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Lawrence, thank you so much. Um, Let me just want to check so that maybe I can also hear confirmation from participants if they can hear me.
Yes, perfect. I think we can all hear you.
All right,
Deborah, you may
thank you so
proceed.
much. I also thank Ms. Pila for a well-rounded presentation. On the first parts of this presentation. I think this issue of manuscript, the formatting, the structure, it's actually very important because the success of your article, in terms of your manuscript rather, in terms of publication, it's something that is actually dependent also on the formatting requirements. Your capacity or your ability to follow the formatting requirements, as well as the that element of seriousness as well that you put into the work that you are doing. Following the instructions, it's also part of showing that you take what you are doing seriously. Even the time of those who are going to review your work, including the editor, who would be doing maybe possibly a desktop review of the work, for suitability in terms of the journal, policies, and also in terms of the journal scope, so that it can be forwarded for review. So that's very important. And I think she also delved deeper into other aspects that relates to the elements or the facets that are required within each element of the structure of the manuscript. So I will move now into more to talk more about the formatting the formatting requirements. So just maybe providing some tips in terms of the formatting requirements that are required. And in terms of formatting, usually quite a number of journals, they follow what is called a freestyle, the kind of formatting that they follow. It's sort of a freestyle formatting where the you are allowed to write, your manuscript in the manner, or to structure it in the manner that you would want to structure it. Then, upon the acceptance of the manuscript, maybe for review, right? Not acceptance for publication, but for review. They can tell you now to also maybe transform the work onto their formatting structure, or to sort of incorporate their formatting structure, or outrightly maybe possibly use their template that they use for that particular journal. But that is normally done maybe when your work is accepted to go for review, or also when your work has been or your manuscript has been accepted for publication. Then they'll ask you now that, okay, this is the font size that we use. This is the type of formatting that we want you to follow. If they number their sections, then they tell you that number the sections, so including all and other instructions that may come with that. So these are just some tips that I can share with you, that it's very important for you to make sure that even if you are following a free style formatting as permitted by quite a number of journals, and to be changed upon acceptance of your paper, you still have to use professional readable fonts such as the Times New Roman and Arial. And for Times New Roman, I use 12 points, and it has worked very well. I think almost every paper that I submit, I have my own structure that I have developed over time, and I just follow that template. With the formattings, and sort of a generic structure that we'll talk about. Okay, it has already been discussed, because that is the generic structure that is just shared in common across most journals within the discipline of social sciences. So I've developed a template. I just have my own one template that I follow. So always I copy that template. It's already formatted completely with everything, including the font where I use Times New Roman. So by the way, Times New Roman and Arial, these are also the fonts that the university use for both, any type of writing, usually for assessment purposes, but also journals. It's also a very professional font to use for journals. And like I've said, for Times New Roman, 12 points is sufficient, and 11 points is sufficient for Arial. That is in terms of the font size. Then double space all text, including references, to facilitate reviewing and editing. I normally don't do that, but it's important. Some journals also actually tell you that you must double space your work, so that will facilitate the readability of your work during the review, and for the reviewers to be able to see, especially if you number the lines, you're able to see the numbers clearly, so that comments that are made can be more specific. Even yourself, when you're responding to those comments, to the reviewer comments, then your actions that you would have undertook, to incorporate the suggestions and the comments of the reviewer, it must also be, specific in terms of the location of that within the manuscript itself. So that is a very sort of important. But like I'm saying, I've never, all the journals that I've submitted to, where I submit freestyle, they've never had a problem with Arial 12 points, Arial 11, or Times New Roman 12 points, 1.5 lines spacings, and 12 point spacings for paragraphs. So I've never had any problem with that. So, but it's double spacing also. It's a very sort of an important technique that works and facilitate the reviewing of the work. So that is for both the reviewers and for editors' comments. Then you should maintain standard margins as well, usually 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters on all sides, right? So that's 2.54 centimeters on all sides. In case maybe others remember, some are still traditional and rather print out the whatever work that they've done, they rather print it out and then mark, using pen and pencil, highlighters, and so on. Then they work on the text. So if one needs to bind, then the margins should be of an acceptable size. So these are the margins that works even for the submissions that we make. I think for thesis, dissertations, it also works very well. Why? Because 2.54 allows for stapling on the sides, as well as for binding, without your text being included in the binding, or in the stapling that would have been done. So that is very important. So this is sort of some kind of standard margins that simply ensure consistency and printability of your work. You also use consistent dating styles and levels, bold or italics as per the journal style. But the level headings, I constantly follow the same type of same level headings that I used when I was doing masters and PhD, or during the course of my postgraduate studies. That is for headings, chapter headings. Then I use capital letters, bold, and usually I just distinguish when I'm using Arial 11 for text. Um, then I make my headings to be Arial 12, right? If I'm using um, Times New Roman 12 points, then I make my headings to be 14 points, so that you distinguish them from the text. In case when you use upper level headings, like maybe level heading from level heading, from 3, where now you are just using small letters, right? You're just using small letters that are not bold, so they will become the same as your text. So you need to avoid that, and to avoid that is to just take maybe 2 points above the normal font size that you are using. So the first level is that you just it's capital letter, bold. Second level it's a small letter bold. Third level, small letter italics. Fourth level, third level, sorry, small letter not bold, right? Fourth level, small letter italics. Then fifth level, I make it small letter italics. Then I just drop the font size by those 2 points to be the same as the text, right? So I just for it to distinguish it from level 4, I just take it down by to the same level as the same size as the text. Then I make it italics. So I try by all means to end there, because there's no any other sort of you can't continue decreasing the font. Now we will not be able to see the headings, but also even 5 levels of subheadings, main heading, including subheadings. That is like already too much. So I tried by all means to end at 4 levels. So, and that's also my recommendation. Now that if you end at 4 level, it also increases the ability of your work. So in terms of the logical flow, coherence, and so on. If you have a lot of loose text, then it will be difficult for you to link those sections. So you be consistent with the heading styles. So those the same level headings, I also use them when I'm working on manuscripts, because I just for me to distinguish that this is the subheading under this section, I follow those levels. So even if I didn't number, but because I'm following those levels in a particular manner, they communicate the sort of in terms of progression of the section, that this is the main section, this is the subsection, and so on. Right. Then the also number pages consecutively. You start from the title page or abstract is instructed. So sometimes I just start from even from the title page. I just start numbering. But if you the journals also in the author guidelines, they do tell you what to do. If they don't want a numbering on the title page, then don't include numbering on the title page, right? But they have to number your pages consecutively from the first one until the last pages. But title page usually it's not supposed to have any number. But even if you submit with like that, then but I haven't encountered any problem or any so communication from the journal that why did you put a number there? Because after all, after the review process, the journal also transfer your work to their template. They are, when that is if they have accepted your work for publication, they normally, transfer it to their template. But we have other journals like MD, Sustainability for MDPI. They normally just put your work on their template already when you submit before it even goes for review. They put it on their template. I've seen quite a number of MDPI journals, also titles that are under MDPI, following a sort of a similar kind of an approach, right? Then so you also have to follow journal or institutional templates if they are provided. So any template that is provided, I've already talked sort of in depth in terms of templates, and the journals also provided their own template. So if the journal provided a template, then follow it diligently. But if you don't follow the formatting of the journal, your work, the chances that it can be rejected on desktop review, then they become very high. Then also the use of active voice for clarity and engagement is very sort of encouraged. Why? Because when you write a manuscript, you are limited in terms of the word count. So you are very, very limited. Majority they just start maybe from 4,000 is minimum up to 7,000. But we have seen some journals maybe that will say they just want 5,000 words, and because of that, you have to be concise. In your writing, you have to go straight to the point. And if you use passive voice, usually you beat about the bush, and your sentences are longer than when you use active voice. So that's why it's encouraged that you must use active voice. Doesn't mean that when you use active voice, you are wrong. But active voice, it's like you are trying to hide from taking responsibility for what you are writing. So instead of focusing on the doer of the action, you focus on the object. Okay. So that is not I'm not saying that is wrong, but you tend to write more than when you are using active voice. So active voice, you use less words, and the statement that you are making is usually very, very clear. Then you also have to avoid excessive passive voice, jargon, and long sentences. So long sentences are actually also an outcome of passive voice, right? Because when you are trying to make the object to sort of place emphasis or focus on the object, then that becomes your statements usually become long. So let's now move on to what you some common errors that you have to avoid. So it's important that you take you're cognizant of this when you are preparing your manuscript. The formatting inconsistencies, using mixed fonts, some of these things we have already discussed them when I was presenting on the previous section. But these are, you don't have to mix fonts. You use Arial, you use Times New Roman, you're using Vedana, you're using any type of font that you feel like using, then you use it, right? So you have to desist from that. Incorrect heading levels as well. They actually affect the comprehension, and you cannot navigate the person who is reading well from one point to the next point within your text, or from one section to another. So the heading levels are very important. Even if they told you that do not number, some journals, they don't want numbering of sections, but the level headings on their own, they sort of dictate the hierarchy, in terms of the progressions of your section. So also uneven spacing as well. Sometimes double spacing, sometimes it's single spacing, sometimes there's no spacing. Those are some formatting inconsistencies that lead to desktop rejection of your work before it's even put for review, right? So the on this point, usually reviewers, editors, they are frustrated when they see that. So you have to be consistent, with one style, in terms of both the font, heading levels, and the spacing, and any other formatting that is done on your work for technical presentation. Then the issue of missing citations, missing in-text citations or references not included in the reference list. So, because an article is not like a dissertation, but even within a dissertation, if one is reviewing a dissertation as well, you still have to check randomly, maybe 10, or depending on the number of references that they've been used, but a certain percentage. I also do that. When I review, I check a certain percentage of your references to check whether they really existing. And what I'll be looking for is for me to just, by any chance, just bump into one that is not existing, maybe in text, and it's in the reference list, or it's not in the reference list, but it's cited in text, right? So every in-text citation must have a corresponding entry in the reference list. So if that is not there, if I just see one, already I'm casting doubt that you were referencing properly, right? So you have to avoid that. And I also remember, why do we reference the issue of plagiarism, accusations, or arguments that are also weak, that are not really supported by evidence, that do not really speak to the existing realities in terms of the literature progression within the social science field. Then overly long paragraphs and organized sections that hinder readability. I've seen some paragraphs that shocked me, during the course of my my when I do research writing consultations and so on. When a person will come with a paragraph that is like half a page or three quarters of a page, it's 27 lines, right? And that is not a paragraph. But there are some departments that allow that, and for what reason I really don't know, because really there's no way you can stick to one idea in 27 lines, right? So usually it's a mix up now, it's a cocktail of ideas within just one paragraph, and that you cannot link them well when ideas become multiple in one paragraph. So it's always important that, even this is just my suggestion, it's not like that is the yardstick that is used or to really benchmark against whether your paragraphs are long or not. But if a sentence is more than 3 lines, it's a long sentence, right? So I try to stick to at least two. If I fail, then I can go maybe to three, right? In terms of paragraphs, my paragraphs, the minimum is okay. I start from 5 lines, but I usually use six. Minimum 6 lines. Maximum 10 to 12 lines, but you can go up to 50. That is widely, accepted. You can even go on Google or in other platforms and search. You can see that the commonly sort of agreed, sort of as a benchmark, is about 15 lines. Don't go over 15 lines in a paragraph. That would be like already too much, right? So it's important that you do not have long paragraphs, uh, sections that are not organized. There's no link. You are not linking your sections. The reader cannot doesn't really know where the reader is, when they are reading your work. In other words, they get lost in the text, right? So all that, they will hinder the readability of your work. And if I cannot read it well, then I also cannot comprehend it. Then the overuse of jargon, acronyms, complex sentences, and that actually confuse readers. So remember, it must just be simple. English should be simple. I don't need a dictionary for me to read your work. Otherwise, I'm not going to read it, because um, you know I shouldn't be having a dictionary on the side, because I don't understand the words that you are using. So where you can go simpler, if there's a simpler way of explaining it, then explain it in a simpler manner. But that's not the reality. We all want these fancy words. We also want these job breakers here and there, so that we are at par with the work that we also read. Because if with the work that we read, within our field, others, they also write at a level that is higher. So we also try to do that. And sometimes, if you are used to writing like that, then it becomes something that is sort of like custom to you. That when you are writing, you use certain type of you're depending on the richness of your vocabulary bank. Then okay, so we talked about the use of acronyms as well. You don't have to overly use acronyms. Everything, then it's an acronym. Even things that should not be an acronym, you put an acronym. So acronyms are only used for those that are widely or sort of accepted. You know, like for organizations like IMF, World Bank, and so on. But even as Ms. Pila said, that when you are writing those abbreviations, first use, then write it in full. But if you use it once, then why abbreviating it? Because you only used it once. So even some journals, they say, if you use that particular same wording or same phrase, maybe in 2 3 times, at least 2 times, then you can abbreviate it. But some, they even go further, maybe to say at least you must use it 3 times or 4 times then you start abbreviating it. So it's important that you do not overly use acronyms as well. Then the complex sentences, and that also confuse readers as well. So make them simpler where you can. Make the sentences very very simpler, so that you encourage the reader to be able to continue reading, as well as yourself as well. You must break the text into sort of some sections that, or sentences that are manageable, sections that are manageable, so that those complex ideas, you break them into simple ideas that will enhance the comprehension of the work that they are doing. Then lack of clarity in research questions, objectives or hypotheses. So you have to be very, very, very clear. You see, so usually this it's a remember, the research questions and the hypotheses, they are very essential to guide the study, the study itself. So if they are not clear, then I can not be able to really tell the essence of the study. Why are you even doing the study? What are you aiming to achieve? Which problem are you trying to provide solutions to? We don't just research for the sake of um of researching. Uh, then the failure to report ethical considerations or approvals adequately as well. So if there's any ethical considerations that are linked to the study that you are doing, then you have to be able to explain them well, and also be able to provide proof for ethical clearance as well, because journals do ask for that as well. To be, when you submit your manuscript, you submit it together with the ethical clearance number, as well as the ethical clearance certificate. And the ethical clearance number should even be specified in the manuscript itself, that this study received ethical clearance from the University of Johannesburg Faculty of the College of Business and Economics, the ethical committee, and so on and so on. Then you provide the ethical clearance number. Then the poor quality tables, figures, lacking titles, legends, or source information. So it's very important that if you use an image, then it must be of a high quality. If you use a table as well, tables are formatted. Don't just take what Microsoft Office gives you, and that is the final. You have to work on that. Even the table of contents, you work on it. If you are asked to put a table of contents anywhere in your work, you still have to because remember, what you get, that is the default for Microsoft Office, but you have to make it suit the circumstances, your own formatting that you are using, in terms of both font as well as just the technical presentation of that. So if you just use of just taking a table, then any table, then you just paste there, then you don't format, edit that, then they won't be of a good quality. Even if you take images, they make sure that the image or the picture that they are using, it's a very high resolution, it's very clear. So what's the essence of putting a graph? Then I cannot really see the graph, right? So I've seen others who, when they generate a graph on Microsoft Office, then they take a snapshot of that. No, don't take a snapshot. Because you can paste a graph in Microsoft Word well, the same way it appears, the same way as it appears from Excel, and that will be of a high quality than if you sort of convert it into an image. So where you're supposed to maybe sort of design, or maybe draw on your own, you can do that instead of copying a table. Rather create your own table and put the text on your own table. That will be clear, instead of taking a picture of a table, then you just paste it in your work. So that is it's very very it's important, even in terms of the figures. Every figure, it must have a caption, uh, figure one, then you explain what is it about. If there are any uh, within figures and tables, if there are any other sort of maybe acronyms that have been used there, then you provide the full definition of the acronym. You write it in full at the bottom as a note, right? Remember, tables and figures, I must understand them without even reading the text, right? So I must understand them. So if you put an abbreviation, I have to go to the abbreviation list. So everything must be put there. Why? Because it must be self-explanatory. Also, not replicating. I think even yesterday we spoke about that. Do not replicate. If the information is provided on the table, then don't write it again and say, as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yet on the table, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can write it in text, then don't put it in form of a table. That will be just seen as you are trying to just cover, more pages or something like of that. It doesn't add any value to the explanations that you are doing. Then issues of typos, grammatical errors undermine they did undermine the credibility of your work. So that also leads to desktop rejection as well, seriousness of your work. So if there are errors, they must be very, very minor and not even frequent. Right, very, very minor. So you must edit your work, use the Microsoft spell checker to just review your work for grammatical errors, spelling errors. Use Grammarly as well to check your document, read it, edit yourself. Use language editors. If you cannot do it yourself, you pay for the service before you submit your paper, so that it will increase the chances of your paper being accepted. So here's now just a submission preparation checklist. So these are things that you have to follow. You must ensure that the all manuscript parts are complete and in proper order, in terms of the logical progression. Remember, that's just the sectioning that you start with a title that is usually descriptive, with action words, is so that people, the title must capture what is it that they are doing. Right? It must also be crafted with search engine optimization in mind. Remember, when we are looking for your article on Google, it mustn't be the 1 million article that is on page 50 or on the tabs on Google. I'm not gonna go to tab number 50. I don't have time to even go there, even though I'm looking. I might really be looking for your article as could be useful for what I'm doing, but there's no one who will go all those tables until 50. I'll just check maybe the first 1 or 2 or 3, then I end there. So what makes it that it appears, your article appears, is the title. So you must craft it in a manner that when one searches, then it appears also on the top searches. But that is the title, the abstract, keywords, introduction, literature review, research method, results, discussion, conclusion, um, you know, the references. That is a progression already. That is where is the structure. Okay, is the skeleton of the work, is the framework of the work. So that is the foundation of coherence, of logical flow of your work. Because if it's not organized well, then it's already not logically not flowing well, and then all other issues now come into play: clarity, conciseness, whatever. Remember, one language convention, if you violate it, it will give rise to other problems that because everything is sort of intertwined. And so it's important that you just have to make sure that all the parts, they are complete and in order. Then you must adhere strictly to journal or institutional formatting and style guidelines. I've already spoke much about that. So if there's a template, use their template, follow it word for word. In terms of their formatting, as they have shown you. So there's a type of pasting that I normally do when I'm given a template. You don't have to delete everything. You just leave one word. Then you you paste merging the current formatting with the formatting that is coming from the where you're copying from, so that you keep where it's italics, it's kept italics, where it's bold, it's kept bold. You can check that. Just go on Google if you don't know how to go on YouTube. If you don't know how to paste different types of pasting, they mean a lot, because if you just delete everything, you are already deleting the formattings as well. Then when you paste your work, it's now another completely new format. So you must be cognizant of that, and it's very essential, because if not following the formatting and style guidelines lead to desk rejection. Then it's also important that you conduct multiple rounds of proofreading to identify errors and also improve the flow of your work. Sometimes you read your work, you wonder, is it me who really wrote it? Because you were tired. When you're tired, you just write anything. We've all been there. Tomorrow you try to read it, it's not even making sense, because you were tired. Isn't it? So you must read your work. You are the editor, you are the author, you are the reader, you are the editor. Before you submit your manuscript, you do everything yourself. All right. Then there must also be, it's important for you to verify all the references for accuracy and completeness. So what I do myself, I have what I call it source control. So it's just a technique that I had to learn when I was doing masters. I had to think, because I had many references. When I did my PhD, I had also many references, almost around 300. I had 40 pages of references only. So there were too many. And remember, along the way, because I was not using any citation tool that keeps track, when I delete, then it also delete. No, I was just I was doing it in the traditional manner, writing my own references myself. So the problem is that when you are now revising that work, when you revise, usually you delete certain sections, but those in-text references are no more there, but they are still in the reference list. So I had to come up with a way of how do I reconcile this. So what I did is that the whole document, I had to delete all the text, leaving the in-text citations only. Right. After that, I just, because okay, every in-text citation, it's like you just have to make them sort of number them one up to the last one. Oh, you don't have to number them, but just arrange them in that order. Yes, because we are using enter, so every it's like a sentence on its own. It's like a paragraph on its own, every in-text citation. Then after that, I I then order them in ascending order, right? Alphabetically from A to Z. After I do that, then I can follow and delete those ones that are multiple, right? Then from there, I know how many sources I must have. I take that, I put it in Excel. Okay, in one row, in one column of Excel, I put that row by row, all of them are there. Then I go and take the index, my reference list. I also paste it next to the next column in Excel. Then now I go one by one, uh, changing the font to red if it appears there. So I'm able to check the whole, right? So after checking, you're gonna end up now with other in-text citations that have not been matched with an entry in the reference list. Then I have to go and look for those references and put them in the reference list, right? So now all my in-text citations are in the reference list. Then I go in the reference list. There are those that did not match the in-text references, the in-text citations column. Then I delete all of that. Then that's how I do my source control. At the end, everything that is within the text is also having a corresponding entry in the reference list. There was no any other way that I could use besides that. So in other words, you must think of what works better for you. How can I do this easier? But you have to do, it's an exercise that you have to do. Then include statements on ethics approval, consent, and conflicts of interest as required. So mostly they are included within the journal, or when you submit, then you have to include those statements. It's important that you include them. If the journal didn't prescribe, then you can include that within your manuscript if it's a freestyle formatting. Then also you must check that all tables and figures are correctly labeled, referenced, and formatted. Mistakes in figures, sometimes you delete a table, then you leave that table number, it's still there in the text. So those are errors. So the same way you reconcile sources, you must also search, go in the search bar, type table. Everywhere where you said table, you must go there, checking the table numbers. Are they corresponding to the table that you are talking about? Is it really that table? Is the table in the vicinity of where it is mentioned? Because if you mention a table, then you say table 1, then as you can see in table 1, or table 1 shows this, then table 1 is on page 5, yet you are talking about it in page 1. So it must be closer there, right? So that is important. Whether they are also referenced, you must provide, if also for tables and figures, you also have to reference them as well. Provide the source for that. Where did you get them from? If there's any notes, they must be there. They must also be formatted well. The tables, So for the tables, I also reduce the font. I normally, for Times New Roman, I use 10 for my table, so that at least I can be able to, the information that I'm getting is clear, and it's also still very sort of visible. Then you have to prepare supplementary files, that relates to data appendices as per submission instructions. So some journals can tell you that they don't want the tables to be part of the text. So you have to put a sort of supplementary files for tables, another one even for figures, so they can direct on what they want you to do. But you also do for all that information that you want it to be considered, but you cannot put it in the paper. Then in the manuscript, then you can put it in the appendices as well, or within the text. Then you can put it in the appendices of that particular article. But some other journals maybe they suggest that you must put it in supplemental files as well. So you can do a supplemental appendices as well that they also publish. When your article is published, then they publish it online as well. Then confirm that the manuscript complies with the word count and formatting limits. So word count is very important. There's just a small maybe margin. We use a 10% margin of being above that, because the problem is when you're above the word count. And some journals, they increase the article processing charge if they charge a PC. If you take more pages, some they charge per page, like Surgeons, for example, they charge per page. So you will be charged more for doing that. But let me just also say, from my experience, I've submitted a lot of times above the limit, sometimes 2,000 words, sometimes 1,000. At times I got away with it. At times I was asked to reduce, right? And it's difficult to reduce, because remember, all those things that you have been writing, they are tying together in some one form or the other. So when you start now trying to reduce, to remove certain sections and so on, and try to summarize certain sections, it's like you're rewriting again. It's a process that is data. So just rather stick to the limits of the journals in terms of the word count, as well as formatting as well. Then we can now move on to some resources and tools that you can use. So these are just some, for referencing. You can use EndNote. I don't know if there are others who use this, Zotero and Mendeley. We do, because I think the library also provides Mendeley. I haven't really checked. I think the UJ library does. I know EndNote for sure, but even Mendeley as well. So you can use them for citations and bibliography. So they keep track of this one. If you use them well, you can build a good database that you can also use even across for other manuscripts that you'll be writing. Then there's also style guides. If you go to there's APA publication, usually for APA, you can have the seventh edition. Online is there as well. You can even just enter the details, then it can generate a reference for you as well. So that is there. If you go on Google, when you say site, you can see the different types of maybe formattings, about 3, 4, 5 type of formattings, and they can copy the relevant one. Then you further edit it. Because remember, anything of AI, you still have to apply your mind as well as a human to check whether is it correct or not. Then use of the also have here for postgraduate students we do have the do research writing consultations as well. Those are some other resources that you can use. Then we can also use the workshops that we do as well. We do keep the recordings of this. We do keep the slides when we are able to receive them. If they have been extended to us, then we also upload all that on our Ubuntu communities for you to access, refer to, if there's a need for you to do that. Then online grammar and plagiarism checkers as well, Grammarly, 1010, and so on. It's important, including Word, Microsoft Office as well. You can make use of it. Then journal websites for detailed author instructions and templates. Then you go to the journal. That's where you see what they want. So that is if you have already a journal in mind that you want to target, right? But others allow freestyle. You write, then you submit. Then they will tell you what to do after. Then you can also use other collaboration tools like Google Documents, or overlay for team writing and review. It's also important if you are writing as co-authors so that we know the changes that you have made. So you have a live document that changes can be made in real time. And with that, let me just give our concluding remarks. It's important for you to have a well-structured manuscript. It's very crucial for clear communication and publication, the success of your publication. Also, they are always discipline specific, and sort of formattings, and that should be followed, and structure as well, including the journal specific guidelines that must be carefully followed. Some journals even have their own citation styles that they want. Some they use numbers, but they will tell you what to do. Then you have to be concise, clear, consistent in both writing and formatting. So clarity, coherence, and consistency in writing and formatting is very important. And it's always important to start manuscript preparation early, and revise thoroughly, incorporating feedback. Don't wait when you have accepted to contribute to a call. Then you say, I'll contribute a manuscript. You maybe possibly you send your abstract, it's accepted. Then you wait until the last hours. When you wait until the last hours, that's where you will be tempted to now do all those other things, like now even lying, referencing sources that do not exist, writing in a manner that is of a poor quality without really applying your mind carefully, having weak arguments, and so on. So it's important for you to plan early. There are the available resources, some that I've already mentioned, must be used. Also peer and mentor review as well. It's very important before submission. Another eye can always detect something that you could not detect yourself as the writer of the work. Then it always you have to remember that good formatting reflects your scholarly rigor, or the quality of the work that you are doing, seriousness, um, you know, responsibility. And if you do not do that, then obviously that undermines the respect for the whole publishing process. So I think it's important, for you also to to just for me to say that this is just sort of an encouragement to you for perseverance and attention to detail in both your academic work that you are doing and in publishing. Yeah, and with this, I just refer you to some sort of references that you can also sort of refer to later when we have shared the resources for additional information. Um, and I'm handing over back to Mr. Lawrence Asani for him to lead us into the open discussion segment where you can ask your questions. You can also make your contribution. You can share your experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Gabriel, for giving us a structured formatting on how to write or compile a manuscript. We really, really appreciate your expertise and your insights regarding this such an important topic. And thank you to you again, Ms. Spila, for giving us the structure as well of how to formulate a manuscript. In that regard, we can now say open it to open discussion now. If you do have any further questions or any burning questions that you might have had, please kindly raise them by typing in the chat box, or you can raise your virtual hand and I will indicate it to our facilitators. And I have enabled everybody's mic. So if you do want to say something, or you do have a question, or you do want to share an experience, please do so in the chat box, or you can kindly raise your hand. So I've enabled everybody's mic. So if you do wish to speak, please kindly raise your hand and I will indicate to the presenter. Thank you. And just a reminder that I have posted the feedback survey in the chat box. So I would kindly ask you to all fill it out, as we are not such a large number. So please kindly fill out the feedback survey, as we'll also use this feedback to ensure that you receive a certificate of attendance for this particular workshop. So please kindly ensure that you put in your right name, your surname, your email address, as well as your student number, so that when we formulate your attendance certificate, we will formulate it with the right details on it. I see Karabo is typing in the chat box. Let's just wait for Karabo typing in the chat box. Okay, so the question, I think Karabo says, thank you so much for the presentation. I might have missed this as I joined late. How can one avoid predatory journals? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So okay, it says, how can one avoid predatory journals? So I think we have that was the opening workshop for this week. I think on Monday where I talked about the predatory journals. How do you distinguish a predatory journal from a reputable journal? So that is there's a lot of we have resources that we 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 can share with you, right? Karabo, we can share a resource with you that you can refer to. It's a comprehensive presentation with a lot of sort of strategies or techniques that you can use to be able to identify that this is a predatory journal or this is a journal that is legit. Right. So let me just say that you can give us your just write an email to rcdinquiries@uj.ac.za. Then we will share a link with you to that particular presentation that I did on that was the first for this week, right? But it's very, very important to, and it's a lot of factors that you have to consider. Karabo, let me just say so. I can't sort of just blanket it under one thing. Then it's you. I think the recording for that session can be very, very useful. But within that presentation, I talked of a number of things, including even the way that the market, those predatory journals market, they market so aggressively. I talked about their website, that usually the website is not really professional, in terms of the appearance. I talked of the editorial board, consisting of members that don't even sort of sometimes exist. If they do, then those are sort of even maybe profiles of people who are not really affiliated in any way or in any form with that journal. So those are things that you actually have to check. So you can do a deep check. I think I even provide it within the presentation and the steps that you follow when you do that sort of a deep, sort of an intensive search to really check to verify whether the journal is printed or not. Then also there was another short one that is maybe that will take you maybe in 5-10 minutes, where you just check the scope. One of the elements is the scope of the journal, where the predatory ones, they normally cover everything. They cover all fields. There's nothing that they don't cover. So if the scope is too wide as well, it's a sign that this could be a predatory journal. But we will gladly share the resource with you, so that you'll be able to really get insights into all these elements and all these facets, and all the strategies and techniques that I shared with you guys to be able to use to distinguish a predator from a reputable journal.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Gabriel, for clarifying on that question, rather. Yes, I have shared the RCD inquiries email address, which is the RCD inquiries at uj.ac.za. So please, you can just email us, then we will send you the workshop recording for that session, which was done on Monday, choosing the right journal, reputable versus predatory journals. Then you can listen to the presentation. I'm sure you will get answers as well on how to avoid predatory channels. Thank you. Is there any further questions from the participants? Any further questions or any other comments before we can end the session? I believe the session was very comprehensive, and I believe everybody here who has attended the sessions, all the participants have taken a thing or two on how to structure and format a manuscript paper. And in that regard, I don't know if there's any further questions from the participants. Okay, I see Tanya is typing a question. Okay, it's just a comment rather saying thank you. It was very informative. So I would like to thank our facilitators again, Dr. Gabriel Maniera and Ms. Koketsopila, for such an insightful presentation on manuscript structure and formatting for the social sciences. We really appreciate your insights and your expertise. And to all the participants for taking your time to join us. I know today is a Friday, and most of us, we also have different commitments, but thank you so much for taking your time to join us today for this session. We really appreciate you so much. In that regard, I would like to close the session. So I just wanted to ask from Dr. Gabriel, from Ms. Koketso, is there any other final comments that you'd like to give us or that you'd like to share before we can end the session?
Lauren, just to thank everyone that had made the time to join us today. Thank you for taking the time on this Friday to join us for the session, and we do hope that you have taken some important points from the presentation, and that will be useful for you when you're busy crafting your manuscripts. And in that regard, thank you so much and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll always advertise our workshops, and if maybe there is any other resources that you would feel maybe you have missed a workshop or a previous workshop, you can always refer to our model communities. And if you feel like maybe there's a recording that you need, you can also email us at rcdinquiries@uj.ac.za, and we will be able to send you the workshop resources for that particular workshop. In that regard, thank you so much again to you, to all the participants for taking your time to join us today. And thank you so much to our facilitators, Dr. Gabriel and Ms. Koketsa Pila. And in that regard, I will now be ending this session. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend as well. Thank you. See you and bye.
Thank you, Lawrence. Bye.